forgotten himself. Nasrudin called at a castle to collect for charity. "Tell your master," he said to the doorkeeper, "that Mulla Nasrudin is here and asks for money." The man went into the building, then came out again. "I am afraid that my master is out," he said. "Let me give you a message for him, then," said Nasrudin. "Even though he has not contributed, he can have this advice free. Next time he goes out, he should not leave his face at the window. Someone might steal it." Not so difficult. The mullah's neighbour wanted to borrow his clothesline. "Sorry," said Nasrudin. "I am using it. Drying flour." "How on earth can you dry flour on a clothesline?" "It is less difficult than you think when you do not want to lend it." Obligation. The mullah nearly fell into a pool. A man whom he knew slightly was near and saved him. Every time he met Nasrudin after that, he would remind him of the service which he had performed. When this had happened several times, Nasrudin took him to the water, jumped in, stood with his head just above water, and shouted, "Now I am as wet as I would have been if you had not saved me. Leave me alone." Fixed ideas. How old are you, Mullah? 40. But you said the same last time I asked you 2 years ago. Yes, I always stand by what I have said. There is a different time scale. Nasrudin went to a Turkish bath. As he was poorly dressed, the attendants treated him in a casual manner, gave him only a scrap of soap and an old towel. When he left, Nasrudin gave the 2 men a gold coin each. He had not complained, and they could not understand it. Could it be, they wondered, that if he had been better treated, he would have given an even larger tip? The following week the mullah appeared again. This time, of course, he was looked after like a king. After being massaged, perfumed, and treated with the utmost deference, he left the bath, handing each attendant the smallest possible copper coin. "This," said Nasrudin, "is for last time. The gold coins were for this time." Man bites dog. That's news. Nasrudin had been out of town on one of his long hikes. As he entered the village, he saw the people hurrying, one and all, towards the marketplace. He asked a passer-by what was going on. "Don't you know? A man has been on the pilgrimage to Mecca. This year there were 100,000 people there, and he's giving a lecture about it." "From the excitement," said Nasrudin, "I had almost concluded that the pilgrimage had come to him, not the other way about." Just as well I came along. Nasrudin was walking past a well when he had the impulse to look into it. It was night, and as he peered into the deep water, he saw the moon's reflection there. "I must save the moon," the mullah thought. "Otherwise she will never wane, and the fasting month of Ramadan will never come to an end." He found a rope, threw it in, and called down, "Hold tight, keep bright, succor is at hand." The rope caught in a rock inside the well, and Nasrudin heaved as hard as he could. Straining back, he suddenly felt the rope give as it came loose, and he was thrown on his back. As he lay there, panting, he saw the moon riding in the sky above.
"Glad to be of service," said Nasrudin. "Just as well I came along, wasn't it?"
Strange that you should ask. Nasrudin climbed into someone's kitchen garden and started filling a sack with everything that he could lay his hands on. A gardener saw him and came running. "What are you doing here?"
"I was blown here by a high wind."
"And who uprooted the vegetables?"
"I caught hold of them to stop myself being swept along."
"And how does it come that there are vegetables in that sack?"
"That is just what I was wondering about when you interrupted me."
Avoid entanglement. The ship seemed about to sink, and his fellow passengers, who had laughed at the mullah's warnings that they should prepare their souls for the next world, fell on their knees and cried out for help. In their lamentations they were promising what they would do if they were saved.
"Steady, friends,"
shouted the mullah.
"Such prodigality with your worldly goods. Avoid entanglement as you have in your lives so far. Trust me, I think I see land."
How foolish can a man be? The mullah was found pouring wheat from the jars of his neighbours into his own at the communal wheat store. He was taken before the judge.
"I am a fool. I don't know their wheat from mine," he stated.
"Then why did you not pour any wheat from your own jars into theirs?" demanded the judge.
"Ah, but I know my wheat from theirs. I am not such a fool as that."
Cause and effect. One evening, Nasrudin quarrelled with his wife and shouted at her so fiercely that she fled for refuge to a neighbouring house, where he followed her. As it happened, a wedding feast was in progress, and the host and guests did all they could to calm him down, and vied with one another to make the couple reconciled, to eat and enjoy themselves. The mullah said to his wife,
"My dear, remind me to lose my temper more often. Then life really would be worth living."
That's why they bunged it up. Nasrudin was very thirsty, and was happy when he saw by the roadside a water pipe, whose outlet was bunged with a piece of wood. Putting his open mouth near the stopper, he pulled. There was such a rush of water that he was knocked over.
"Oh ho!" roared the mullah. "That's why they blocked you up, isn't it? And you have not yet learned any sense."
The burden of guilt. Mulla Nasrudin and his wife came home one day to find the house burgled. Everything portable had been taken away. "It is your fault," said his wife, "for you should have made sure that the house was locked before we left." The neighbours took up the chant. "You did not lock the windows," said one. "Why did you not expect this?" said another. "The locks were faulty and you did not replace them," said a third.
"Just a moment," said Nasrudin. "Surely I am not the only one to blame."
"And who should we blame?" they shouted.
"What about the thieves?" said the mullah.
Description of the goods. Nasrudin lost a beautiful and costly turban. "Are you not despondent, Mullah?" someone asked him.
"No, I am confident. You see, I have offered a reward of half a silver piece."
"But the finder will surely never part with a turban worth 100 times as much for such a reward."
"I have already thought of that. I have announced that it was a dirty old turban, quite different from the real one."
More useful. Nasrudin entered the tea house and declaimed,
"The moon is more useful than the sun."
"Why, Mullah?"
"We need the light more during the night than during the day."
Which is my half? Nasrudin and a friend were thirsty and stopped at a cafe for a drink. They decided to share a glass of milk. "You drink your half first," said the friend, "because I have some sugar here, just enough for one. I shall add this to my share of the milk and drink it."
"Add it now," said the mullah, "and I will drink only my half."
"Certainly not. There is only enough sugar to sweeten half a glass of milk." Nasrudin went to the owner of the cafe and came back with a large packet of salt.
"Good news, friend," he said. "I am drinking first, as agreed, and I want my milk with salt."
Learn how to learn. The mullah sent a small boy to get water from the well.
"Make sure you don't break the pot,"
he shouted, and gave the child a clout.
"Mullah,"
asked a spectator, "why do you strike someone who hasn't done anything?"
"Because, you fool," said the mullah, "it would be too late to punish him after he broke the pot, wouldn't it?"
Face the facts. Nasrudin was crying bitterly one day. "What's the matter, Nasrudin?" asked his neighbour.
"I am sad today, neighbour," replied Nasrudin, "because my wife is ill."
"But I thought it was your donkey that was sick," replied his neighbour, bemused.
"Yes, it is really, but I'm letting myself get used to the shock by easy stages."
Congratulations.
"Congratulate me,"
shouted Nasrudin to a neighbour.
"I am a father."
"Oh, congratulations. Is it a boy or a girl?"
"Yes, but how did you know?"
Two obvious principles. "All should share equally in whatever is available," a philosopher was announcing to an interested group at the tea house.
"I'm not sure that it would work," said one doubter.
"But have you given it a chance?" demanded the idealist.
"I have," shouted Nasrudin. "I give my wife and my donkey exactly the same treatment. They get exactly what they want."
"Excellent," exclaimed the philosopher. "Now tell the company what the results are, Mullah."
"The result is a good donkey and a bad wife."
When you face things alone. You may have lost your donkey, Mullah, but you don't have to grieve over it more than you did about the loss of your first wife.
"Ah, but if you remember, When I lost my wife, all you villagers said, "We'll find you someone else." So far, nobody has offered to replace my donkey.
The roles of man.
"Brother,"
said Mulla Nasrudin to a neighbour,
"I am collecting to pay the debt of a poor man who cannot meet his obligations."
Very laudable, said the other, and gave him a coin. Who is this person?
"Me,"
said Nasrudin as he hurried away. A few weeks later he was at the door again. I suppose you're calling about a debt, said the now cynical neighbour.
"I am."
I suppose someone can't pay a debt and you want a contribution.
"That is so."
I suppose it is you who owe the money.
"Not this time."
Well, I'm glad to hear it. Take this contribution. Nasrudin pocketed the money. Just one thing, Mullah. What prompts your humanitarian sentiments in this particular case?
You see, I am the creditor.
Dry in the rain. A man invited Nasrudin to go hunting with him, but mounted him on a horse which was too slow. The mullah said nothing. Soon the hunt outpaced him and was out of sight. It began to rain heavily and there was no shelter. All the members of the hunt got soaked through. Nasrudin, however, as soon as the rain started, took off all his clothes and folded them. Then he sat down on the pile. As soon as the rain stopped, he dressed himself and went back to his host's house for lunch. Nobody could work out why he was dry. With all the speed of their horses, they had not been able to reach shelter on that plain.
"It was the horse you gave me,"
said Nasrudin. The next day, he was given a fast horse, and his host took the slow one. Rain fell again. The horse was so slow that the host got wetter than ever, riding at a snail's pace to his house. Nasrudin carried out the same procedure as before. When he got back to the house, he was dry. "This is all your fault," shouted his host. "You made me ride this terrible horse."
"Perhaps," said Nasrudin, "you did not contribute anything of your own to the problem of keeping dry."
What is real evidence? A neighbour called on Nasrudin. "Mullah, I want to borrow your donkey."
"I am sorry," said the mullah, "but I have already lent it out."
As soon as he had spoken, the donkey brayed. The sound came from Nasrudin's stable. "But, Mullah, I can hear the donkey in there." As he shut the door in the man's face, Nasrudin said, with dignity,
"A man who believes the word of a donkey in preference to my word does not deserve to be lent anything."
Behind the obvious. Every Friday morning, Nasrudin arrived in a market town with an excellent donkey, which he sold. The price which he asked was always very small, far below the value of the animal. One day a rich donkey merchant approached him.
"I cannot understand how you do it, Nasrudin. I sell donkeys at the lowest possible price. My servants force farmers to give me fodder free. My slaves look after my donkeys without wages, and yet I cannot match your prices."
"Quite simple," said Nasrudin. You steal fodder and labour. I merely steal donkeys.
Objectivity. A neighbour came to Nasrudin for an interpretation on a point of law. My cow was gored by your bull. Do I get any compensation?
Certainly not. How can a man be held responsible for what an animal does?
Just a moment, said the crafty villager. I am afraid I got the question back to front. What actually happened was that my bull gored your cow.
Ah, said the mullah. This is more involved. I shall have to look up the book of precedents, for there may be other factors involved which are relevant and which could alter the case.
Nobody complains. Hamza, the homespun philosopher who peddled truisms in the tea-house, was droning on.
How strange is humanity! To think that man is never satisfied. When it is winter, it is too cold for him. In summer, he complains of the heat.
The others present nodded their heads sagely, for they believed that by doing so they partook of the essence of this wisdom. Nasrudin looked up from his abstraction.
Have you not noticed that nobody ever complains about the spring?
How far can you usefully be from the truth? Nasrudin saw some tasty-looking ducks playing in a pool. When he tried to catch them, they flew away. He put some bread in the water and started to eat it. Some people asked him what he was doing.
I am eating duck soup,
said the mullah. I believe you are right. The mullah was made a magistrate. During his first case, the plaintiff argued so persuasively that he exclaimed,
I believe that you are right.
The clerk of the court begged him to restrain himself, for the defendant had not been heard yet. Nasrudin was so carried away by the eloquence of the defendant that he cried out as soon as the man had finished his evidence,
I believe you are right.
The clerk of the court could not allow this. Your Honour, they cannot both be right.
I believe you are right,
said Nasrudin. It appears to be thou. Nasrudin, standing utterly absorbed in the market square, was reciting an ode.
Oh, my beloved, my whole inner being is so suffused with thee that whatever presents itself to my sight appears to be thou.
A wag shouted, And what if a fool should come into your range of vision? Without pausing, as if it were a refrain, the mullah carried on.
It appears to be thou.
Ladder for sale. Nasrudin scaled a wall and pulled his ladder over into the garden on the other side. The owner caught him and asked what he was doing there.
I have a ladder for sale,
improvised Nasrudin.
Fool, said the householder. A garden is no place to sell a ladder.
It is you who are the fool, said the mullah, for you did not know that a ladder may be sold absolutely anywhere.
Why camels have no wings.
Daily,
said Nasrudin to his wife,
I become more amazed at the manner in which nature is organized, and the way in which everything upon this earth is in some way planned for the benefit of mankind.
She asked for an example.
Well, for instance, you note that camels have no wings, by the mercy of Providence.
How does that help us?
Don't you see? If they had wings, they might roost on housetops and destroy the roofs, to say nothing of the noise and the nuisance of their chewing and spitting their cud.
The gold, the cloak, and the horse.
I cannot get a job, said the mullah, because I am already in the service of the All-Highest.
In that case, said his wife, ask for your wages, because every employer must pay. Quite right, thought Nasrudin.
I have not been paid simply because I have never asked, he said aloud.
Then you'd better go and ask. Nasrudin went into the garden, knelt, and cried out,
"O Allah, send me 100 pieces of gold, for all my past services are worth at least that much in back pay."
His neighbour, a moneylender, thought he would play a joke on Nasrudin. Taking a bag of 100 gold pieces, he threw it down from a window. Nasrudin stood up with dignity and took the money to his wife.
"I am one of the saints," he told her. "Here are my arrears."
She was very impressed. Presently, made suspicious by the succession of delivery men carrying food, clothing, and furniture into Nasrudin's house, the neighbour went to get his money back.
"You heard me calling for it, and now you are pretending it is yours,"
said Nasrudin.
"You shall never have it."
The neighbour said that he would take Nasrudin to the court of summary jurisdiction.
"I cannot go like this," said Nasrudin. "I have no suitable clothes, nor have I a horse. If we appear together, the judge will be prejudiced in your favour by my mean appearance."
The neighbour took off his own cloak and gave it to Nasrudin. Then he mounted him on his own horse, and they went before the Qadi. The plaintiff was heard first. "What is your defence?" the magistrate asked Nasrudin.
"That my neighbour is insane."
"What evidence have you, Mullah?"
"What better than from his own mouth? He thinks that everything belongs to him. If you ask him about my horse or even my cloak, he will claim them, let alone my gold."
"But they are mine," roared the neighbour.
Case dismissed. Give him time. Nasrudin used to sit on the terrace of a certain tea house. One day a small boy ran past and knocked his hat off. The mullah took no notice. The same thing happened several days in succession. All the mullah did was to pick up his hat and put it on again. Someone asked Nasrudin why he did not catch and punish the boy, who was small enough, or ask someone else to do it.
"That's not the way this thing is working," said Nasrudin.
One day soon afterwards, the mullah was late in reaching the cafe. When he got there, he saw that a fearsome-looking soldier was sitting in his place. At that moment the small boy appeared. Such was the force of his habit that he tipped off the soldier's fur cap. Without a word, the soldier drew his sword and cut off the boy's head, then resumed his seat.
"You see what I mean?"
said Nasrudin to the friend who had questioned his inaction. The yogi, the priest, and the Sufi. Nasrudin put on a Sufi robe and decided to make a pious journey. On his way, he met a priest and a yogi, and they decided to team up together. When they got to a village, the others asked him to seek donations while they carried out their devotions. Nasrudin collected some money and bought halwa with it. He suggested that they divide the food, but the others, who were not yet hungry enough, said that it should be postponed until night. They continued on their way, and when night fell, Nasrudin asked for the first portion,
because I was the means of getting the food.
The others disagreed, the priest on the grounds that he represented a properly organized hierarchical body and should therefore have preference. The yogi because, he said, he ate only once in 3 days and should therefore have more. Finally, they decided to sleep. In the morning, the one who related the best dream should have the first choice of the halwa. In the morning, the priest said,
"In my dreams I saw the founder of my religion, who made a sign of benediction, singling me out as especially blessed."
The others were impressed, but the yogi said,
"I dreamt that I visited nirvana and was utterly absorbed into nothing."
They turned to the mullah.
I dreamt that I saw the Sufi teacher Khidr, who appears only to the most sanctified. He said, "Nasrudin, eat the halwa now," and of course I had to obey.